I'm reading this book called Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning, and it's really interesting. There's quite a few concepts in here that run counter to the way that people commonly try and learn new bodies of information. Examples being that one of the classic things that we do is drill, routines, repetition. Let's go again and again. And whilst at a short-term level, it seems to reinforce learning, the learning that it reinforces tends to be much shorter term because it doesn't incorporate real world scenarios where there's innumerable amounts of variables. So what's actually much better than actual repetition or drilled practice is varied practice and mixed repetition, where ultimately you learn one, let's say, routine or maneuver or concept, and just before you get to the stage where you're beginning to fully grasp it, you switch and move to ultimately a different area. This is called interleaving. And when you interleave ultimately different routines, whilst in the shorter term it's frustrating, you don't feel that you're making as much progress, over the long term, this actually reinforces longer term learning because there's always a gap between, which can last from hours to days, of embedding a actual routine, an idea in your head. So by mixing different scenarios up, it increases your actual foundational and structural learning, and that's why it's better to interleave practice. So for me, the way that hits home is my routine of trying to read a couple of books around a different area when I'm trying to pick it up, as opposed to reading just one book is helps me learn. So this is the third book I'm reading in reference to learning. So the first one was Ultra Learning, the second one was Learn Like a Pro, this one's Make It Stick, The Science of Successful Learning. And then in combination with that, I of course try and articulate what it is that I'm learning through voice notes such as this, because it reinforces some of the things that I'm learning. And then of course I have my daily, let's call it journal/newsletter, where I'll talk about concepts taken from things that I've read or things that I've experienced to reinforce ultimately memory. And this was one of the things that was really, really interesting for me. The second thing that was really interesting for me was the recall and retrieval. So recall is literally, you can test yourself by just mentally trying to remember things from anything that you've watched or been exposed to, and incorporate, of course, mnemonics when it's like difficult. And then you can go for retrieval when someone gives you a concept or a word and you try and retrieve every piece of information around it. So by incorporating interleaving, they call it, or varied practice, with recall and retrieval, as well as when you drill, systematically moving on and always varying it, it's a much better way to learn in general.